Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Resilient Advisor Show. My name is Jay Coulter, and joining me today is Brian Portnoy. And we're going to talk everything about behavioral finance and reshaping wealth.
Our mission at Resilient Advisor is to have a significant impact on the retirement crisis by educating and empowering financial advisors to better serve their clients. We bring you industry thought leaders and experts to help you make a difference in the lives of your clients.
Brian Portnoy needs very little introduction to people on Twitter, but our audience is really wide-ranging now, Brian. So it'd be great, since this is your first time on the show, if you give listeners a little bit of your background.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And I appreciate being here. So I am the founder of an educational technology company called Shaping Wealth. Most of my history in the industry, in financial services going back 20 plus years, is in investment management. Started my career many, many years ago at the time, a little company called Morningstar, which is now a very, very big company called Morningstar. Great place. And from there, got into the world of investment research, manager due diligence, portfolio management, mostly in the hedge fund industry. So trying to simplify complex strategies, which led to an interest that went into an obsession with behavioral finance and the psychology of money. And fast forward to today, trying to help financial advisors and other audiences make better money decisions.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to digging in to the intricacies of your company, what you guys are offering. But I got to tell you, my research for this interview, I listened to some other shows that you were on, and I did some reading. And what I really appreciate about your style, Brian, is clearly you're intelligent. You have a PhD from Chicago, you're a CFA, and you're also incredibly humble, which is hard to find that combination right there. And it makes for a great interview. So the term that you use quite regularly is funded contentment. And I love the way you articulate what that means. So could you tell our listeners a little bit about funded contentment and how to apply it in their business when working with retirees?
Yeah. So the genesis of the phrase funded contentment goes back many years, just me being a normal guy with a wife and 3 kids and thinking about what is a good life. And at the same time, being kind of in the depths of the hedge fund industry, trying to figure out a lot of the complexity there, and asking a few questions like, who cares and what really matters? And so both on the professional journey and the personal journey, thinking about true wealth. Funded contentment is my shorthand for true wealth. I define it as the ability to underwrite a meaningful life. It's a short but deliberately loaded phrase because we have to ask, well, what is a meaningful life to you as an individual? And what does it mean to underwrite or to afford that meaningful life? I make a really stark contrast between being wealthy and being rich because the quest to be rich is really the quest for more. And we are genetically wired to strive, to want more. It's healthy to a large extent. However, as it relates to figuring out where money fits into a happy life, that quest for more can actually be paradoxically, it could be harmful. So the more we get, the more miserable we become. I wanted to establish funded contentment, or this notion of true wealth, as a place where not only financial advisors and their clients, but really husbands and wives, parents and children, people with, friends, you can have a real conversation about what really matters.
Yeah, it's well beyond the Monte Carlo analysis when you're dealing with people as they enter those retirement years. And that distinction between the rich and the wealthy, that's at the core of that whole concept right there. Do you have any other guidance for advisors as they're working with folks to make that clear distinction between helping the client understand the difference between rich and wealthy?
Yeah, boy, I guess there's a lot to say. Wrote a whole book on it, The Geometry of Wealth.
That was the softball, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. I would try, and I work with a lot of financial advisors all over the world. one thing to think about is the notion or the nature of goals. So we're in an industry of so-called goals-based wealth management. But what a goal is, where does it come from, how do you strive for it, how do you achieve it, is actually far more complicated from a psychological and from a neurological point of view than we might imagine. And so when we're thinking about, you asked a question, rich versus wealthy, sometimes when we get so focused on goals, I want that nicer home, I want the vacation home, I want to be able to afford to send my kids to college, I want to retire comfortably and with dignity, I want to do all of these things. You, me, the world that we live in, it's very merit focused, it's very goals focused. That can sometimes be self-defeating. And so one thing I do talk to advisors about in some detail is the difference between goals-based wealth management and purpose-based wealth management. Goals are part of a larger conversation about purpose. And what is purpose? It's that sense of meaning of what are you actually doing with your life? What's really important to you? That sense of what I call in the book reflective happiness, what scientists and researchers like Danny Kahneman call life satisfaction. That's what we're here to achieve. And so thinking about purpose, the bigger things, your community, your job, your faith, your patriotism, whatever those bigger sources of meaning are, and then figuring out how money fits into the quest for those things, that is a deeper, it is a more uncomfortable, it is a harder, but it's ultimately a more rewarding conversation. Not one that we're going to have every day, but it's something that we should be prepared to have, because in my experience, it's actually what clients want.
Brian, I know we didn't plan on it, but I'd like to go a little deeper on that, because I've had similar conversations with advisors over the past couple of months. And I love this term, purpose-based wealth management.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a financial advisor that reads The Geometry of Wealth and they're excited about applying this to their business, Brian, how do they start the process of doing that? What does it look like?
Yeah. One useful frame that I have for our industry is just thinking about the conversation. All right. What is it we're going to talk about? Okay, so there's client prospecting, and you tell them all the good things you do, and then there's an onboarding process, and they want to work with you and transfer accounts and figure all of that stuff out, and then you get their portfolio and their plan to a place where you want, and then you've got hopefully a multi-decade relationship with this individual, with their spouse, with their parents, with their kids, with their community, and we struggle sometimes with, okay, we're all situated, we're on a plan, what should we talk about? Structuring the conversation between advisor and client is harder than it sounds, because you need to be prepared, you need to be forward looking, you need to have a sense of really a narrative arc. We are not natural calculators, but we are natural storytellers. So my sense is that advisors who think about a series of interlinked conversations about the things that really matter to them and their clientele and their community are the ones who are just thriving in terms of not just basic stuff like retention, but client satisfaction with that deeper experience, which results in more referrals, better referrals. Hey, I can't believe what she was able to help me think through or plan for. I can't believe that he actually asked me a question that I've wanted to talk about, but no one gave me permission to. So one of the things that we do at Shaping Wealth, or are beginning to do, it's more or less a brand new company, is we're building technology that facilitates a relatively frictionless introduction to the conversations that matter. Because what we don't want to do is have multi-hour soul-searching conversations with our financial advisor. And financial advisors don't want to do that. But we do want to be in a situation where, we're not a doctor, we're not a priest, we're not a therapist, but we are a coach. And we're a money coach in a very, very broad sense, recognizing that money is so connected to our overall sense of well-being. We want to be equipped to have those better conversations.
Brian, let's use that as a transition to talk about your new company. So when you look at the business that you're building at Shaping Wealth and how you're going to serve financial advisors, what is the value proposition to advisors who are engaging with you and your firm?
Yeah. It's about content, education, training, and ultimately having those better conversations. So we have multiple audiences. So wealth management is where our focus is now, but we also have some emerging relationships in the corporate wellness space. We're also working with some universities, and the relationships are global. So we've got clients in North America, Europe, and Asia currently. And the offering, which is designed to be subscription based, because it's content oriented, it's education and training oriented, for the wealth management industry is at two levels, what I just call advisor development and client engagement. So as I meet and work with advisors, and I have a team of 5 people at this point, and we're going to do some announcements around that team in the next month or two. When we talk to a firm that has 5 or 15 or 57 advisors, and they're thinking about, well, how do we compete? How do we put out a distinctive offering where we can be our best selves and elevate our clients, and it's a win-win in terms of them having a great experience, us being able to grow their business? One of the challenges is training and development. So we have effectively a Coach the Coaches program. It starts with what I call our Funded Contentment Boot Camp. It's a multi-hour, self-paced thing. It's pretty cool. It's multimedia. It's multidisciplinary, where we work with advisors to understand the basics of this journey toward funded contentment. And that journey is captured on the book jacket to Geometry of Wealth, 3 shapes representing defining purpose, setting priorities, making decisions. So we find ways to introduce what that journey is all about, and then connect with a variety of content and coaching and consulting that allows these teams of 5 or 15 or 50 advisors to get to the next level, to turn investors into planners, planners into coaches, and to take people who are already really good and make them great. So level 1 is advisor development. Level 2 is client engagement. At the end of the day, the advisor, they want to be better. The best of the best are wrapped up with this notion of Kaizen, this notion of continuous improvement. And we love working with those people, with those sorts of cultures. But ultimately, this is about delivering something to the client. So number 1, we teach how to have those better conversations through the program I just talked about. But we're also building out a content library. We're just getting started. But the vision really is sort of a Disney Plus or a Hulu with original content, multimedia, all delivered through modern educational technology. I'll add one really important thing, which is that so much of the education that is in our industry that you and I have seen for years now, it's relatively narrowly defined in terms of one person talking at somebody else and sharing some information. What I've taken seriously for a long time, what my team has expertise in, is instructional design. So we learn differently. There's verbal, there's oral, there's kinesthetic learning. There's a variety of ways that we can connect with different people, and because we take instructional design seriously, we think that what we offer is really quite different than anything I've seen in the industry.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. I do want to keep it higher level for time reasons. So let's look at this through the lens of a financial advisor that could be watching this. So you're talking about this boot camp that you're going to go through, and I assume learn the constructs that are needed to deliver a better client experience, talking about these issues without becoming, as I have advisors tell me all the time, somebody's psychologist.
Right.
Is that fair? Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then how long is the boot camp? And tell me about the content itself at a high level.
Yeah. So the boot camp. So we have a handful of early clients now that are effectively collaboration partners. Different types of firms, like I said, all over the world, but they tend to be financial planning firms with anywhere, with small asset bases to very, very large, tens of billions of assets. So we're working in a collaborative way on this boot camp to see who likes what. The current image, and I don't want anyone to hold this to me, but I'll just put it out there, it is, a 3-hour experience that we want to offer in different ways. One way is self-paced, meaning like, okay, here's the content. It's going to come to you through the educational technology that we're building, which is super slick and kind of cool. And you can kind of just go through it. Or we have other teams that want to do sort of a half day, what's the word? They want to sort of have a breakout, have the whole, have planners, para-planners, anybody else on the staff that they think, and we carve out a Thursday or a Friday afternoon. They order pizza or whatever, and we put on sort of a multimedia thing where we walk through the story. And to answer your other question, what is that story? It's the story of us. It's the story of humanity seen through the evolution of what money is in our lives. And so, I already mentioned 3 steps to achieve funded contentment: defining purpose, setting priorities, making decisions. So that is the narrative arc that we're working on. There's, sort of a context for defining our purpose, which is, the human brain. The brain that we have between our ears right now is sort of the same brain we had about 130,000 years ago. So we've got very old brains in very new worlds. And money wasn't invented. First coins were invented in Sumeria 6,000 years ago. And money isn't just a means of exchange and unit of account. It's also a form of social trust. It changes the way that we interact with each other. It has lots and lots of emotional resonance. And so the current focus in our industry, which I know you've seen, we've talked about, on financial wellness, financial well-being, like where did this all come from? Why are we talking about this? Well, there's like a 6,000-year story that we summarize in about 7 minutes that gets everybody on the same page. And then we engage on like, well, what do we do with this? If we are in fact interested in not only helping our clients pay the bills, save for goals, have a rainy day fund, but really fund contentment, how do we get there? And through the principle or philosophy of microlearning, because despite my rambly answers to you, no one wants to sit around for like hour-long lectures, one after another. They want bite-sized information. We are putting together sort of micro workshops and such built around microlearning principles, where every idea is 3, 4, 7 minutes in length, attached together into a curriculum or a workshop. And over time, as we build the technology, it'll have a choose your own adventure quality, meaning that people will have choices along their learning path to say, oh, I have 2 topics to choose from. I think that one's more interesting, and they get to go that direction versus the other.
Brian, about 5 minutes into this interview, instantly wish that I had scheduled more than 20 minutes for us to have this conversation. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I've got 2 questions that I'd like to try to squeeze in here before time runs out. First, I listened to you on an interview with Phil Back, and you were talking about loss aversion and how much it impacts the way you view money and risk. And I thought it was such a great articulation of the real challenge of loss aversion. So if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of rehash that.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts around your personal experience with loss aversion.
Sure. I mean, loss aversion, the simplest expression is bad is stronger than good. I think it was Timothy Wilson who put it that way. Losses are more painful than gains are pleasurable. That's the idea behind loss aversion. We're just sort of wired that way because from an evolutionary perspective, we have to survive before we thrive. So we want to avoid danger before we grab for the brass ring. We are who we are. And I think what I said to Phil, or I know I've said it many times out loud, like, put ourselves in a casino context. If I go to a casino and win $500, I'm kind of happy. I could buy my wife like a really nice dinner or do something with the kids. That's cool. If I lose $500, I don't think I can get out of bed for like 4 days. So the ratio that we hear from the psychology literature in terms of, well, what is the loss aversion ratio, is about 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, meaning that $100 loss feels 2 or 3 times worse than $100 gain feels good. Mine is probably like 4 or 5 or 6. I don't know. And part of my journey as an investor, as a business builder, but also as a husband, father, friend, is recognizing, is growing, hopefully more self-aware over the years as to how that loss aversion shapes the way I see things and ultimately make decisions.
Excellent. That's exactly the example you gave on that interview. And I just thought it just really hits home and articulates the problem with loss aversion in a crystal clear way. So the last question, I'm not even sure how much of a question this is. I love this new book that you and some of your partners have rolled out called How I Invest My Money. You did it with Josh Brown, and then a handful, I think 25 different essays in the book. And what I really like about this is, from somebody who's worked with financial advisors for over 20 years, it's really hard for an advisor to articulate how they manage their own money. And you and Josh got 25 people to put it in writing. Tell listeners a little bit about the book.
Yeah, the book was really a passion project. Josh wrote a great blog with that title, How I Invest My Money. It was a very raw, transparent take on how he thinks about his financial priorities. And he and I got to talking about getting some others to, express or reveal the same. And this volume is 25 short, 4-page chapters. So very easy to consume, from financial advisors, portfolio managers, venture capitalists, other financial experts, giving their unvarnished, unpolished take on how they manage their money life. And not just in the narrow sense of their investment portfolio, but saving, spending, borrowing, giving. And because we, built out a very diverse group of folks to contribute, some people just getting started in their careers, some approaching retirement, folks from all walks of life, what we had, and the feedback's been, frankly, it's been amazing, is a series of essays that anybody could pick up. And out of the 25 people there, probably say 2 or 3, they're just like me. And they're thinking about the same challenges. And I can share that, offline, as I was editing these chapters, I had multiple conversations with financial advisors who said to me, no one's ever asked me this question. No one's given me a space to really articulate why money is important in the way that it is in my life. And we realized that license, as it were, to tell your own money story can be very powerful. And so if it's hard for the advisor to go there to talk about that painful experience as a child, where there might have been, sort of less than what the family needed and how that impacted them, imagine how hard it is for our clients who don't have the vocabulary. They might not have the confidence that comes with an MBA or a CFA or a CFP. So it's led to really cool conversations with advisors on how not only they, but their clients can tell their stories.
Yeah, it's such a great resource and a great idea for a book. I could see you guys having a whole series of those, as there's plenty of folks out there who'd like to tell their story, and it can be impactful and have meaning in a reader's life. For podcast listeners, please visit shapingwealth.com to learn about Brian's books. They're also available on Amazon. Brian, I really do appreciate you coming on. I wish we'd scheduled more time. I'd love to have you on again later this year.
I'd love to. Thanks so much for this.
Our mission at Resilient Advisor is to have a significant impact on the retirement crisis by educating and empowering financial advisors to better serve their clients. In the new Resilient Advisor series, How I Serve, we interview top financial advisors who are making a difference in the lives of their clients.